Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is JJ, and it's been actually quite a while since I had a lot of going on around, and I honestly haven't had much time to do what I like most, which is in that case of course making StarCraft casts. But here I am again, and without further ado, let's go straight into the game. And what a game it might be. I'm saying might because this is a game between ROOTYugiOh and AxRyung, played during Team Acer's TeamStory Cup, the best cup that there is outside actually in StarCraft at the moment. It's a team cup when not individual players show off their skills, but whole teams perform, participate and play at the highest of the possible level. Now, who dropped? Oh well, I see Take TV is in a glitch as he's suspended in ignorance. The problem is always painful and unpleasant because you have no idea what the hell is going on in the brackets, and being a person organizing a tournament, or at least trying to inform the viewers about what the hell is going on when you don't have the feedback, well, that's problematic. I see the man is really humorous. The map is New Kick Precinct, from what I recall. Well, the map has a lot of dead space right here, which is perfect for some air units or even proxy attacks. Which is possible, but not as common. There are two watchtowers that are good to keep an eye on, because they actually cut the map in half. This half, of course, in this half, like Europe in I mean, the second half of 20th century, you know, Iron Curtain, West, East, even the colors match. So yeah, this is Soviet Union, and here's the Free West. Hooray! Anyway, as we can see, Ryung is going to open and start off with a command center build instead of a barracks opening after supply depot. It's a good strategy and a good adjustment to what the Zerg usually do, as they usually tend to just micro up and go to hatchery, even another one if they get the chance and opportunity, depending on what they see in Terrans base and if they see something at all. Now, YugiOh has scouted everything he could, so he's got a very clear picture as to what to expect, and most of all, he's not going to expect any Reaper harassment, as there was no early refinery. One is being placed right now, so we might see some Reapers, albeit a little late. Which won't have that big of an effect because there's a third base, so YugiOh is going to heavily invest in macro for the time being, and I believe we might actually see some sort of Reaper harass if Ryung decides to do so. He might of course decide that Reapers are bullshit and not worth the effort and go straight into the factory, which is, in my perspective, a more, shall we say it, a profitable option in terms of gains and resources invested and net risk of such an investment, as factory is a key component to any Terran build playing against the Zerg nowadays. So I believe we're going to get Reaper skipped, and that's the case. We've got Ryung going straight for that marine reactor completely pushed over, so we're going to see a fast factory. I believe well, it's going to be in any moment now, 2 orbitals commands added, which will allow Ryung to stay dead even against his opponent's economy, even though the Zerg has a tendency to macro up very quickly, especially if they are given free reign and peace of mind. Now, Queen's added very late, considering that spawning pool was made, I think, after or at the moment of that third expansion, so it's quite late. Reactor, nothing too fishy, 2 marines at the battlefield. Surely a rather necessary precaution. We must keep in mind that Ryung has no idea what his enemy is doing, but I believe he actually is making quite a good read on his opponent. He allowed, and well, he couldn't actually stop it, he let his enemy see everything he's got, see that early second base, so he expects a macro Zerg play. He doesn't expect any sort of crazy 2 base all in, or even 1 base, because it's not Bronze League, it's actually professional gaming, so he's going to assume Zerg has 2 bases, because in I think, like 99 out of 100 bases you'll see something like that too. We can hear mules grinding that money, and a lot of income that is. So, Roach Warren ordered by the Zerg player, by YugiOh, and I have to say I really like that idea. This Roach Warren, early Roach Warren with a complete forgo of metabolic boost early on, is actually a very good response to what the Terran is making. The Terran is making, of course, Hellions from factory with reactors that those barracks have actually provided. Fast impact, so we know what's the technology option by ROOTYugiOh, and nothing surprising here. We know that the Terran is going to go into mass bio, absolutely typical standard, with an addition of a starport and a reactor to that starport. I assume it's going to actually take over this one. It actually might be the case, as the reactor is more needed for medivacs and factories in the middle game. And we can see that ROOTYugiOh is going inside the enemy base and he's going to try and make something happen, make as much of a harassment as possible, but his opponent, instead of going speed links, he has decided to go for roaches, and that's a very brilliant decision, as roaches actually take less time than speed links to do if you're going for a third base. Now, it was a very good move by YugiOh, but ROOTYugiOh has managed to get some juicy kills. Although I believe that he is actually losing a lot of resources. Let's see, yes, 6 workers killed, so that might actually hurt at this stage of the game. It's not as much as about clear worker count, because we can see there are 14 added at a time, but more about lava count, which is as important as worker number in the essence. You can see Electric already made, and we're going to see, I assume, Spire rather soon, because it's a rather typical build for Zerg. Go Mutaling, although we don't have any Ling investment in that game, so it might be a sort of a change from what we usually see by the Zerg. A change which is always welcome, exciting and interesting to see. Our Terraplane is adding a lot of barracks at the same time. I believe, yeah, starport being built right here. It's going to be for starters, taking out this reactor for starport and starting charting out those medivacs. And some Widow mines before it's actually finished, as he's got 30 seconds, so those mines will finish with, maybe not exactly with starport, or actually, yeah, more or less at the time of that starport. Third base taken by ROOTYugiOh, and this base, to defend this base, ROOTYugiOh needs to secure, well, of course, this front point, but also this one. This is the most crucial one, as it's a big open area. There's no choke right here, and if our YugiOh manages to actually enter his units and keep them here, contain our Terran and split his army in half, well, ROOTYugiOh is going to be in a hell lot of trouble, as he will be able, and as his enemy will be able to take this base with no fear of retribution from our Terran player. But I believe it's not going to be the case, at least not for now. When it comes to unit choice, we have muscular augmentation for Hydralisk, so interestingly enough, we are going to see a Roach Hydralisk composition. Played less often than very popular Mutaling combination, but also pretty potent and effective if played correctly, and if, of course, utilizing all the perks it provides, most of all very powerful anti-air, which might be crucial against any sort of medivac play, especially that Hydralisks are so fast and creep. And Groove Spines added as well. That range is essential. Actually, he's adding it before muscular augmentation, so YugiOh, playing excellently, is actually assuming that his opponent is going to try and harass him, buy himself some time and gain an economic advantage, an economic leverage, and that might be the case. Well, those Hydralisks are extremely slow, and they don't have those Groove Spines yet, so I believe he will rather avoid any engagements as of yet, because he still doesn't know what exactly he's going to face. Oh, well, no, excuse me, he does. He knows exactly about all the barracks, so Overseer made preemptively against any Widow Mines, and those Roaches going straight in, trying to bait out all those Widow Mines attacks, and Hydralisks, they're making quick work out of them, but if will Marine Line actually survive? I believe no. They are dying out extremely fast. SCV's pulled off the line and trying to stop that attack, and that attack is extremely effective. It actually might break the ROOTYugiOh's front gate and move on into a more effective and attacking position. Now, YugiOh is retreating a little bit against a new steam wave of reinforcements coming up from ROOTYugiOh's 5 barracks. We can see that he is in a good spot, and he's still got a lot of units in the battlefield, and he's sending out a lot of reinforcements, mostly Roaches. Hydralisks are pretty much intact. 11 Hydralisks on the battlefield with no additional added. Am I correct or am I wrong? It's 11 Hydralisks, no additional added. And they are starting to work out on enemy supply depots, perhaps that command center, a juicy option, and ROOTYugiOh is forced to lift off and fly to a safer location and a better neighborhood. So YugiOh has managed to secure himself a nice small victory. Passage in glance on the way, some infestors added. Infestors after their names have been far less common as a use by the Zerg players, but they still have the niches, have the uses, and another big engagement between both players. We can see that roaches are dying en masse. It's a bad day to be a roach, but not a bad day to be a hydralist at all, although we see that those units are starting to die extremely fast as ROOTYugiOh has managed to actually take the battlefield and eliminate an enemy's army, and I believe those hydralists will die, but they did so much damage. Before going down, they have managed to kill a lot of units, but when it comes to resources lost, we actually see that our Zerg player lost some more, although he's got 4 bases. He managed to stop enemies mining for a time, but he didn't manage to break that base and secure a powerful contain up here at the ramp. I believe in no smart part thanks to Terrans upgrades, because ROOTYugiOh has adapted accordingly and extremely effectively, investing heavily in armor upgrade against Hydra DPS and hoping for those Marauders to clean up roaches and 4 Marines with steam to out DPS Hydralists if given the option. Now, those links are there to bait that Widow Mine attack, and indeed they managed to do exactly that. This queen is going to go to a better place. Let's hope that it finds its peace. This Widow Mine is not as effective as it would be against any potential Banelings or Zergling combinations, as those units are a little more bulky. Now, 3 infestors in the backfield, using that fungal growth for some good damage, and actually that might be a nice use if he manages to actually fungal all those medevacs yet again, but no, they are forced to retreat. And another base added by the Zerg in the upper right corner. We mustn't forget about that, as in this matchup, especially with this strategy, it might be going down to a war of attrition, and very atrocious it actually might be. That we didn't have a long life. Well, unfortunately for her, those hydralists need to retreat for the time being, and ROOTYugiOh is doing the work, showing us exactly why do the Zerg players prefer to play Mutalist Baneling combination, as with Mutalist and Baneling burst damage, they can easily kill those Marines, which are in fact the important units in this army. Now, Hydralists down with all those upgrades necessary for them to be extremely effective at what they do. ROOTYugiOh is decided to take a tail between his legs and go strafe, get the hell out of there. He managed to destroy Zerg's base. Little does he know that YugiOh has already established a, shall we say it, 5th one in the upper right corner. Well, perhaps he actually knows that as he's cleaning up those creep tumors and making his way towards that important point in the map, a decision that YugiOh has already reacted to and is, I think, on the defensive for the time being. He is not investing in any other tech, as to say, I would think about Ultralists in that case most of all, or Greater Spire. It is not the case. He's working for level 3 ranged attacks for his Hydralists and Roach combination, and traumatized Carapace for Overlords for that essential scouting, if I'm correct. Yes, this is scouting. We can see some drops played by ROOTYugiOh, but those drops are not as relevant as they would be in another build, and that would mean of course Muta-Baneling build, because in that combination a Zerg player, until he loses his, well, after he loses his Mutalisks, has a very limited capability in order of fighting enemy general drops. In this combination we have Hydralists that can and probably will make a living hell out of Medivac's life, but those roaches are here, they react accordingly, and they do incredible DPS to those Marines. One Marine has died immediately, and ROOTYugiOh has been shown what's his place and who's the boss. Planetary Fortress established at a 4th base. It's essential and important for ROOTYugiOh to take it, as if he actually manages to do so, if he manages to secure that 4th base for himself, and for the time being we can see that it probably is going to be the case, and the story right here, he's going to take that 4th base. Terran player on 4 bases, another drop down by ROOTYugiOh, but YugiOh's defense, and I have to address that, is exceptionally fine. And what I wanted to say is that after ROOTYugiOh has established his 4th base, he'll be in a very dominant and confident position to actually take his enemy head on and wrestle with him. in the most brutal and frontal assault sort of fashion. Non-Calapasaurus added, and RYUG has managed to take out another of Yu-Gi-Oh's bases. He's down to 4 bases yet again, unequal with Terran. That's never a good situation for Zerg to be, and practically always a sign of trouble, especially if we consider that no high attack, no trump card, and no jack in the box sort of play is up in his sleeve. Yu-Gi-Oh is increasing his hydraulic count, but I believe he actually needs to add something else to this army, as Infestor, Roaches and Hydralisks have been thus far proven not as efficient as he would like to be. Another drop made by RYUG, and his split pushing capabilities are amazing, but Yu-Gi-Oh is also quite effective at doing exactly the same, as he managed to force RYUG yet again to lift off, but lifting off does not cut it and does not deal with it as effectively as he would like, especially that Yu-Gi-Oh has lost yet another base and he's down to 3 bases, amount lower than our Terran player. That's a situation RYUG is very comfortable with. He would like to keep it that way and actually make his way into continuing building on his armies, perhaps adding some sort of factory tech like siege tanks, which actually might be the case, or some Hellbats as well, as they are a very good frontal assault unit, even more effective than, shall we say, Marines in taking that brunt damage from those Marauders. So Marauders are also pretty beefy, so I doubt that he's actually going to those Hellbats. It's not a good option as I thought at first. I think it's going to add a few tanks. It's actually quite a viable option. A few siege tanks might help him a lot in this matchup. Sensor tower added in order to know when the enemy is going to come from, and that's actually a big tell, because this combination is far less mobile than Mutaling and not as effective as multi-pronged attacks in many different places and directions. A lot of Infestors going to be killed by that effective scan, and RYUG is in some sort of trouble. He's going to lose a lot of units to Fungalgrowth instead of Banelings, but he has managed to actually carve his way up to outside the enemy's territory, but at the same time he's doing a drop up at this corner. Losing this catcher will be absolutely crucial for Yu-Gi-Oh, as he's on 2 bases right now, only one of which are actually mining, and he has to keep this front line. This is his life or death situation. If he loses that front line, he will lose this just remade expansion and he will have absolutely no money. It's his lifeline, it's his life pipe, and RYUG is on the offensive. He knows that he's in a good spot and he needs to press on his advantage. Infestors not in a best spot. They are trying to slow down and whittle the Terran army and Rufflet's efficiency. Those Hydralisks are making themselves pay and worth their wealth in dollars. Now they will actually stop enemies' attack yet again, but for how long? We can see that RYUG has been extremely effective with his money thus far in this game, has managed to take out a lot of his enemies' expansions and whittle down Zerg's economic growth up to a minimum. Just like I think in Cyprus as of modern times. Now it's actually pretty important because Zerg do rely on economic advantage. Without that, they are unable to play just as, shall we say it, confidently and freely as they would certainly like to. With only that little of an income and another drop right here going to stop that expansion from happening, we can see that our Zerg player Yu-Gi-Oh is below his enemy's income, and I don't know if he actually cancelled that or not. I assume he did, because if he didn't, that would be pretty tragic indeed. Now Marine's going straight in and attacking his enemy's base, but Infestors are on the spot, so are Hydralisks. Will they actually manage to whittle down his enemy forces and stop that offensive? Stop his enemy from taking this essential pipeline? I don't know. It's actually any man's game. Infestors are doing their work, but I believe it might be too little, too late for the Zerg player to stop it. Hydralisks and Roaches are definitely losing to Marine and Marauder combination with some Widow Mines and Medivacs. Unfortunately for the Zerg player, he is going to be cut off from any income as of thus far, and that is a terrible situation to be in. Some little reinforcements going from the top part of the map, but I believe it's going to be too late. Too many resources lost in comparison to his enemy. 8,000 resources ahead by rank, and that actually tells who is winning. Yu-Gi-Oh is losing all his supplies, and I believe we're going to see a GG any moment now, as RYUG has managed to make his way up into the vital part of the map with another drop play going up at this only mining expansion that was just re-established by Yu-Gi-Oh. And that will be it for this game. It was amazingly played by both players. YugiOh going a little more classic, less used tactic nowadays. The hydra risk roach combination. A combination that apparently was very familiar to Ryung. A combination to which he managed to respond accordingly and grab this game for his team in Team Acer's TeamStory Cup tournament. And with that conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you good night, farewell, and see you around next time. JJ signing out.